Hello, my name is Simon Hedger. I'm going to talk to you about standing stones and stone circles and where my fascination came from. It started a long time ago when, as a young man, I'm working on a deer farm, and the deer farm has fields on either side of a wood, and through the woodland had been cut an avenue, and the avenue led to a large circle enclosure, and in the middle of it was a tall iron post with big long tall gates attached to it, and the gates could swing right round the inside of the circled enclosure, and in the side of the enclosure was a little door or gate, and the deer would come running down the avenue through the door into the enclosure, and then the big gates would swing round and gently crush the animals. Years go by and I come into the house and television's on, and there's aerial pictures of stone circles, and there I see circles with avenues running up to them, and that sort of triggers the idea that maybe standing stones and stone circles have something to do with trapping animals. So I start looking at standing stones in this country. I go abroad and look at standing stones and start collecting all the images, and very quickly you realise that standing stones have a very recognisable shape. And I became very drawn to a pattern that was on the side of the stones, and it was complicated. I didn't understand the pattern I was seeing, but what I was seeing was a constant. So you'd see a picture of a standing stone and you think, oh, I'm seeing the same old pattern again. So I was in deep thought about all of this when one day I go and visit a friend, and he is hanging a trellis down the side of his house. And when I see the trellis moving up and down like this, I realise I'm seeing some of the pattern that I'm seeing on the side of stones. That gave me the idea, one, that they are anchors to a trellis, but the standing stones are going to be anchors to long fences. And so I start experimenting with trellises and ways of making fences, and looking at the patterns of the standing stones. A standing stone will be buried into the ground, making a very strong anchor. And the net is pulled over both sides like a sock, and then the trellis is attached to it. And the trellis can move backwards and forwards. And a group of people can climb up, and where their weight is on it, it pushes the trellis back, pulling the long fence. Well, you find out standing stones and stone circles initially are made of wood, and then they can get converted to stone. And that the pattern I was seeing on the sides of stones, I started to see on sides of cliffs and on big boulders. And so I was drawn to studying the sides of cliffs, and I noticed the pattern there, but also that leads you on a path to rock art. And in rock art, you see lots of trellis patternings and pictures of animals and animals running into enclosures or being enclosed. The Inuit Indians have their rock art is like square checkered patterns, but these patterns are known to be called magic traps. So that led me to the thought that stone circles are going to be holding lots of fence lines which are going to be running to the centre, that's the stone circle, and these were going to be types of enclosures, places to enclose animals. And when you fed the word enclosure into the internet, that took me to kite enclosures. And kite enclosures are known to be animal traps. They were noticed by aircraft pilots flying over Africa in the 1950s and 60s. And from there they would see these giant diamonds in the land. And they have stone walls and stone circles in the corner, and they're known to be animal traps. And you can see how the path where the animals come rushing down the hill and into the enclosure. When you feed kite enclosure again into the internet, that took me to Stonehenge. And Stonehenge has a kite enclosure joining onto it. So that led me to see that maybe Stonehenge is going to be an anchor to a wooden structure, and the wooden structure then is going to be pulling all the fences. So Stonehenge will be back here holding at the end of the here are the fences, and when these fences are being pulled by a river or a massive line of standing stones that way, these lines are coming in and pulling fences tighter this way. This then becomes the centre of your enclosure, but it's picking up the signals of vibration down the fences, and your enclosed areas are becoming places safe for you to be. And if an animal escapes or tries to break in, you can feel the vibration through the fence. Animals could be drawn into the enclosures because the standing stones are going to be putting first lines, tight lines across, then hanging nets, and the nets can be pulled backwards and forwards like curtains, so the animals will walk down into the enclosure without knowing, be captured inside, and then worked down through smaller and smaller fields until they come to a crushing area. And the crushing area is going to be similar technology to you have on the side of a standing stone that's moving like this, but it's going to be laying flat on the ground and being squashed this way and that way, and so the animals will come in and then be gently crushed. This then leads me on to seeing that this was the beginning of all marketplaces, and over the centuries stone circles shrink to just being 4 stones, and so the 4 stones are stuck in the ground like this and they're holding a wooden trellis structure, but attached to below, because there's not going to be any animals in the stone circles because they are just going to be full of the mechanics of the process. But below are the folds, pens, that are all being pulled up against the stone circle, and as the animals rush down the hillside, into the pens they go, and the pens unfold like baskets, and then the trap can bounce backwards and forwards. I'm describing a very complex subject which on other videos I will go into more detail. I'm an artist, but I'm dyslexic, and I carve large complex wooden sculptures, and complex patterns is my gift, and I can just see the pattern on the sides of stones. And the Native Americans say that the history of mankind is in the surface of the stone. It's being able to see the pattern that drives me on. I feel that there's much more we can find out about our history. There's a big story yet untold. Thank you for listening to me.